Hey, welcome back to Way of the Wrench, and on today's video we're going to take a look at arcade coin doors, how they work, inspect this one, and put it into our cabinet. So stay tuned. So first up, do you actually need an arcade coin door in your custom Raspberry Pi arcade cabinet that you've built through my series? Not at all. Remember, when you configure your buttons in your control panel, you can have a separate button that when you press on it, it inserts coin. You can even share that as a select button for Nintendo games. However, if you're like me, the alluring appeal of these glowing red buttons from across the arcade and dropping a quarter in only to hear, "Welcome to the D&D world," dude, that's going to make this arcade build sick. Okay, so you have a couple options. You can buy brand new units. They range anywhere from 50 to all the way up to like 200 bucks. You can get single coins, you can get doubles, you can get even up to 4 players. Pretty cool. It just really depends what you want to build. There's newer kind of styles, and then there's the old kind of classic ones like these. And they're all out there, you just got to look for them. Now, another really good option is finding a used one. So if you're looking up on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, see if there's somebody out there with one of these for sale. Probably pretty cheap, 25 bucks, 50 bucks. Or you might even find a whole cabinet that's not working and they want to let it go cheap, and you get a coin door out of it. And that's the route that I took. So I went on to Facebook Marketplace, ended up finding this guy who was selling arcade machines and broken down arcade machines, and I asked him if he had a whole cabinet that needed fixing up for cheap. And he said, you know what, if you just need a coin door, why don't you come down? And he took this out of one of his machines that was totally broken down. He gave me the coin door for $0, and I just had to buy the coin mechanisms for the back, 10 bucks each, so $20. I have a coin door for my arcade. Stand-up guy, I thought I'd give him a shout out for that. He runs Blaster's arcade in Surrey, BC, Canada at Blaster.ca, I believe. Thanks, dude. All right, enough yakking. Let's take a look at this thing and learn how it works and see if there's anything that needs fixing on this one. So really quickly, so that we know what's going on the front, so that we understand what's happening in the back, we've got our insert coin slot. So you're going to put your quarter in here, and you'd be able to find that in a dark, dingy, smoky arcade back in the day, because these parts here would be lit up and telling you what the amount of money you had to put in. And they also act as the coin return. So if you had something stuck in there, it wouldn't kick out, and you push this in and the coin would return back to our coin return slots right here. And then the arcade just making money, so you get your key here and open up your lockable switch here and open it up and take your money out or do any kind of repair on the back side here. Alright, so when I flip this over, the best way I'm going to do this is I'm going to talk about each individual little part and split it up. So first up is our coin mechanism. Now, you can buy different mechanisms depending on what kind of coin you want to use, and you just replace them inside your coin door. So I bought 25 cents coin mechanisms, but you can put in loonies, you can even put in tokens. It just depends what you need. Now, the way these work is really quite simple and elegant method of doing it. This little mechanism here has a certain amount of weight, and it's on a pivot. And depending on the size and the weight of the coin that's put in here, it will throw it at a certain trajectory. And if it's perfect, it makes it into the coin and inserts it into the arcade. If it's not the right coin, then it doesn't have the right mass, doesn't have the right trajectory, and it goes into yet a different coin slot, which always goes out to your return. So this is like this. Now, another feature that arcade cabinets have that I actually didn't even know about is that if you put a quarter into an arcade machine when there's no power on it, they don't want to try to rip you off. They want you to get your money back. So when there's no power and you put a quarter in, it always will go to the coin return at the front of the machine and give you your quarter back. All right, down in here we've got an electromagnet. It's basically a wire wrapped around a piece of steel, and when we put 12-volt power to it, we get an electromagnetic field. And right down in here we have a little switch. This right here. So this is its normally off state, and it redirects the coin to the coin return to the front of the arcade. And when you turn the power on, it sucks back that switch, which reroutes the coin now to go inside the arcade and down into the coin box. So with the power on and I put the quarter in, it drops down into the coin box. As that coin goes down into the coin box inside the arcade, there's actually a little micro switch here, and there's a little metal bar that goes into the path where the coin drops down. And when that goes down and goes like that, that makes a connection for these two terminals and registers on your Raspberry Pi or your arcade that one quarter has been inserted, like this. All right, these two light bulbs here are just 12-volt automotive light bulbs, and these are what are lighting up those two red plastic insert 25 coin buttons at the front of the arcade door. Because these are just regular light bulbs, that filament can burn out, so if you need to replace them, just take them out and take them to your local auto parts store, Napa or Lordco, and get them changed out. Really quite cheap. Probably $1 or $2 each. Now remember that lighted 25-cent coin return button. If you put a quarter in and it jams up somewhere in here mechanically, it goes in a little funny. Remember, if you push it in, that releases the coin. So if you look here, you'll see that this whole mechanism kind of moves away a bit and drops the quarter. Now this guy here is called a slam switch. And there's two contacts here that are connected to these two spade terminals. And so this would be part of your wiring for your insert coin. And normally it's a open circuit, so it means they're not connected. But the reason behind these is if you slam on the coin door as hard as you can, sometimes you could get the micro switches to kind of register that there was a coin inserted and it would give you a free game. But if you had one of these slam switches, when you slammed on the coin door, this little weighted contact would contact the other one, and it would kind of temporarily short or ground out the circuit for your insert coin, and this would prevent free credits. There's the back side of the keyed locked switch. So as you turn the key, you can turn this lever. This is closed, locked, so it won't let it open. When it opens up, like that, it lets you open up the door. Now that we have an idea of how all this works, let's go into the inspection part of it and see how we would actually check and diagnose things that are working or not. Alright, so this arcade coin door has two of these electromagnets, so we can check both of those, and if it works, that little switch back here will move, and when we kill the power to it or take it off, it should go back with the spring. So we can check that manually with the power supply. So get your power supply set up to 12 volts, and you get a positive and negative. Now normally it wouldn't matter which way you go, however, because it's an electromagnet, we're making a certain magnetic polarity that we want that to come this way, and they've got a diode in here, so that actually prevents you from setting it up backwards. So all you do is you put power supply on, put it on the connections. Okay, that might be the wrong way, so switch it up. There we go. And you can see that it's operating both. If it was only operating one, then I would jump over to the other side and just manually test it. For these two light bulbs to check if these are working, you get your 12 volts set up on your power supply, and it does not matter which way you go in this case. And you got two spade connectors, so just put it on and do they light up or not? Okay, now in this case, they do light up, so I don't have to bother checking the other bulb. And because they both lit up at the same time, then whatever jumper wires going from one bulb to the other are connected properly. To check this micro switch when a coin gets inserted and a credit gets applied to the game, you need a multimeter, and you're going to set it up to measure resistance. So ohms, there's the little omega symbol, pretty much any of these, but if you go higher, you won't miss the reading. And then it doesn't matter which lead you put to the wires, but you put the red on one of them, and then the black one can go to any of the wires coming from the micro switch. So to figure out the wires, this one has the white wire with black dashes, so that's one of them. And then these green wires, it really doesn't matter because they've actually wired it jumped to the other micro switch. So if you put a coin in any spot, it will give you a credit in both players. So all you do is you put the other lead on here, and when you look up here, first you should test your meter. So right there, I'm getting a low reading there. It's measuring the resistance of my wires. So the meter works. Put it on one of the green wires, and then just trigger your micro switch. And it's going down to the same value, so that is a good micro switch. And all you would do is take the cover off and check the other one, make sure it works too. And like I said, it really doesn't matter which wire because they're hooked up together. So, good micro switches, moving on. Right, now that you've troubleshooted all your parts individually and maybe had to repair something, now the next thing is figuring out the wiring mess that's here and which wire is what. So how do you hook this up to your Raspberry Pi? Strategies to figure out which wires are what is start at the part. So, for example, a micro switch here, I have a white wire. Follow where it goes. That white wire goes to the other micro switch, and at the same connection, it has a white wire with a black dash, and that comes all the way to the end. And then I've got a green wire that comes up from here, and it connects to the other side, and that has a green wire as well that connects over to here, and then they both come out over here. Right, now that we know that these wires will register that a coin has been inserted in the arcade, these will have to be hooked up to whatever button we're using in the arcade control panel in our Raspberry Pi setup that when we press that button, we get a credit inside of our video game. So these will get wired up to those buttons whenever that button is pressed. And in this case, there's 2 wires. You could just put them together and put them to one of the buttons, and it will work for any button press for player 1 or player 2. Or if you wanted to be picky, you could change the wiring over here and make these separate so that you literally have individual coin inserts for only player 1 or only player 2. Now next, wiring. Now remember, when we flip the switch and put power to our arcade cabinet, we want to start keeping the quarters, so that means power has to be activated for our electromagnets here. And we also want the 2 12-volt automotive light bulbs to light up so that we can find them in the dark and they know where to put the quarters. So the wiring for these is going to be all together, all on one circuit, and it's going to be done through jumpers. So you're going to notice that there's going to be positive and negative coming somewhere into this circuit, into one of these 4 parts, and then it basically just jumpers in series to all the rest of the loads in the circuit. And so 2 of these wires over here, one of them is going to be a positive and one of them is going to be negative 12-volt power. So you could just, through process of elimination, go through these and figure them out and see what lights up and see what powers up your magnets. Now, if you're not sure if this is 12 volts, you can also put on your power supply, you could put something a little bit less and work your way up. If 5 volts doesn't work, then it's not 5 volts. 9 volts, nope. 12 volts starts working, then that tells you that this is a 12 volt setup and you're not going to burn things out. Looking at the only 3 wires that are connected in that circuit we just talked about, I found that this green with the white stripe is not even hooked up to anything, so it's going to be left alone, and that leaves me 2 wires. So literally put your positive and negative on 2 ways and see if the magic happens. So nothing happens when I do it that polarity. Switch the polarity. And there you can hear the solenoids and you can see the light at the very top there working. So I can't go the other way because of that diode, which is preventing electricity from going the opposite way. Now my coin door is kind of starting to show some age here, so it's going to need a little bit of refurbishing. First thing, we've got some sticker residue. There might have been an old arcade sticker on here. We've got a couple chipped paint and a little bit of rust on some of the stuff here that needs a little touching up. The keyed switch has also been busted off. There's a key broken off in here, so that needs to be replaced because I don't have another key for this. That's going to be cheap, 10-15 bucks. Get a new lock cylinder from a Home Hardware or Home Depot or something like that. And then the only other thing really that needs doing is these plastic lenses could use a little polishing and see if they come up a little bit nicer. So, got 2 options. First option is remove everything, give it a good cleaning, and give it another coat of paint, a couple coats of black paint, and it's got a specific kind of finish to it. It's kind of got a matte black finish with gloss flecks of paint. So if you're going for a true exact replica, you're going to have to probably do a coat or 2 of matte black paint and then get probably a paintbrush and some glossy black paint and just flick it all over the surface. That's the texture that's on this thing. Or the other option is very carefully mask out over these pieces here and spray it with all together. You're probably going to get a nicer finish if you remove everything, and not too hard. Looking at the back, you've got probably about a dozen or 15 of these little nuts, these little nylock nuts around here that hold these mechanisms in place. You could take that all out and then you could paint this lock cylinder pretty easy. Flat screwdriver, take this lever off, and then there's a big nut back there. They spin out and then it just pushes out the front. Now, technically this still works. I could get this rekeyed, but really it's not worth it. You're going to pay more to get a locksmith to do that. So you just take this to your local hardware store and try to match up the diameter, match the length, and at least the length from there to the underside of that head. And now you're good to go. To take all of the mechanical and electrical guts out of this thing, you got to take off all of these clamps that go around the outside because that's going to interfere in getting this off. And then there are 4 of these nylock nuts in each of the corners. You undo those and then this whole thing will come out. Like that. Okay, should just pick out. So now that I can clean these up, no problems here. Don't lose the little springs. Then if you wanted to paint this coin door with these separate, then all you got to do is remove these screws here and those screws there, and those will pop out. Now, always when you're dealing with this stuff, especially if it's not going to be done all in one point one day, is bag and tag the stuff so you don't lose it. So all those little black brackets, all the little nuts and screws for them. Okay, all the little screws for the coin returns. And since they're drastically different, I can put these 4 nylock nuts for attaching the whole mechanism in. And I'll put the ground wire in just for keeping it organized. And the little red lighted up pieces, put them in here with the springs. Before I do any painting on this, I'm going to give them a good cleaning and dry them off, make sure there's no damage, and then get into the painting. Can you imagine how many kids over the 40 years are picking their nose and eating candy and touching these things? So I cleaned these up, but there's still that little residue from an old arcade sticker or something, so I'm going to try to remove it with some of this goof off. So it's really good at getting kind of plastic and tape residue and that kind of thing. If you're worried, put it on a test piece. I'm not too worried about this if it lifts the paint, but you could always do a little test patch. Make sure that it doesn't eat your paint before you try it. Now, if you look at that, that pretty much removed the sticker. I mean, it's tempted just to leave that. But I do have some spots here, and really it's wear. It's not even chips. So I think I'm going to paint this up and it'll look brand new. So when you look at these doors, you can see that there's a flat black base, and then there's these little glossy kind of little flecks of paint. And then I'm kind of hard to see, but this piece is textured, and I'm pretty sure it's got a glossy look to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this door and the main arcade door with a flat black first, and then spatter on some gloss with a paintbrush. And I think these ones and the insert coin frames I'm going to do with some gloss black. Alright, I got my Kansas spray paint, I got my flat black, and I got my gloss black, and you gotta shake these things for 2 minutes. You know that. You know that. Alright, here's a little painting trick, especially when you're painting with metal things. You want to speed it up and you want to make that paint just smooth out like butter. Then you heat it up, preheat it. Get yourself a heat gun or your wife's hairdryer and give it a little heat before you paint. Now, obviously not too hot, but just warm enough.
sure you don't get them too hot. If they're too hot to touch, like you can't leave your hand on it without getting burned a little bit, then it's too hot. Let them cool down. You just want them warm. These little things, that lid actually pops off, and there's a little insert in here so you can change it to say a loonie or $1 if you're in the great old America. But I'm going to clean these up, take this out so this doesn't get damaged, and see how they look when they're cleaned up. If they still look a little faded, I might do some polishing on this. Alright, kind of hard to tell on camera, but this is a little bit faded. There's some like white paint splatter or something on here, and look, fine scratches. So I'm going to see if I can polish this up with some polish, plastic polish. So I got two products here I'm going to try. This is a Novus. It's a good brand for polishing up plastic and removing fine scratches. And this is part of a 3-stage process for doing cars, but it's a very, very light cut. Very fine grit. And another thing I could probably try that I don't have with me is toothpaste. Good old toothpaste. If it shines your teeth, it'll shine plastic, and they're all not very abrasive. So let's try these. Alright, wash these up and see how they look. Alright, clean them up. These turned out really quite nice. All of the paint spatters all gone on it and all the little fine scratches. There are a couple deep scratches, but I mean, we're not going for concourse level on this arcade. This is good enough for me. When you're ready to put this in, just put your sticker back in or your little piece of paper. And remember, you could put whatever you want on this thing. Man, I could maybe make some Way of the Wrench logos in there. That'd be pretty cool. Put that in. This goes to the bottom. Let's push it back in, and there we go. Ooh, snazzy. So the front of that arcade door now looks mint, but it looks different because it's all just flat black, and that's not how it originally looked. It's got some gloss paint kind of spatter on it. So what we're going to do is try to replicate that. So I've got the same gloss paint that I used on the other parts. I've got a container, doesn't matter, it could be garbage. I'm just going to spray your gloss spray paint into this. Then you're going to have yourself a brush and a rubber glove, disposable rubber glove, so that you can do this. You can kind of flick the bristles to get to flick the paint, and you might want to have a couple different variations of bristles so that if this doesn't make the pattern that you want, too big or too small, then you can find another brush that does it. Maybe attempt trying to hit it harder or flicking it like this. But you got to find some way of replicating it, and I highly recommend you get something and test it out before you do it on your arcade door. Hard to tell, but I think I'm done. Looks like an even pattern somewhat. Right, the beauty of kind of using a heat gun on this metal stuff is I'm already ready to put this together. It's already dried, so let's go. And when you put these brackets on, remember that you can actually use two different holes. So if you notice that one end sticks in deeper than the other, so it depends whether the thickness of the wood, the MDF that's in your front of your arcade cabinet, is 3/4 or 5/8 thick. So you just have to change it depending on what you have. And in case you're wondering, 5/8 needs to drop down further, so put it in this one if it's 5/8, put it in this one if it's 3/4. And really all that's left is going to get a new cylinder, and I'll put that in later. So there you have it. That looks pretty snazzy to me, and it's going to look $1,000,000 inside the arcade cabinet. I just got to do the door lock cylinder here, and we're off in business. So time to put it in the arcade now. Alright, coin door's in. We've got an Xbox 360 power supply that I have redone the wiring on it so that I can have constant 12 volts. And I'm going to plug this in now. Snazzy! Right, it's a wrap on another video from Way of the Wrench, this time on everything about arcade coin doors. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And if you'd like some behind the scenes information, videos, pictures, feel free to follow us on Instagram, Way of the Wrench. And nothing motivates me to make more videos and better quality videos than all the likes and subscribes that I'm getting from you guys. So feel free to just smash that subscribe button for me. And until next time, cheers.